Good afternoon, everyone. It's Wes Garnell from Garland Music. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Just making a quick video here about an organ that I am preparing for rental. This is going out later this week, which means I have to go over everything to make sure it's going to be in tip-top shape for whoever's playing it. And I found a couple of interesting issues I thought I would show you. Okay, pardon my messy shop. So before everything goes out, of course, I check everything works. And what I like to do is actually make notes about drawbars that I'm not particularly happy with, so that those can be addressed. As a player, I really hate drawbars that are at all problematic when I'm trying to play the organ. So, and then what I do is I just mark the ones that I'm not happy with green tape, so that I can take that off after they're fixed. I just remember which ones need some attention. So what I'll do is, the upper manual is all fine. A little bit scratchy there, that might get some contact cleaner. But overall, this is a fine sounding organ. The lower manual is a slightly different story. Over here, I have this drawbar here works fine. This one here if you pull all the way out to the stop and you find just the wrong spot, it'll turn off. And obviously that's not something that you want to find in the heat of battle when you're playing a solo, especially if you only pull one drawbar like I just did. So that is going to get corrected. And that's probably a loose spring contact out of that, or the thing that controls how it goes in. We'll look at that in a minute. Over here, I'm not sure why I have that one marked. That's the one I meant to mark. That one is out entirely. That's going to be a loose wire at the back, virtually guaranteed. As it is. All of the notes on that drawbar don't work. And what I wanted to show you was this one here. This is an interesting problem. So I'm going to hold down a key and pull this one out slowly. Now this might be fine if you're playing that as Lukey's Boat by Great Big Sea. But really, it's not what you want as a player. This is why I hate ratcheting drawbars. They do the same thing. You got little dropouts between every bus bar on the inside there. What this is going to be a damaged resistance wire underneath the contact that bridges the two contacts on the back of the drawbar. And I'll show you that in a minute. It's an interesting problem because a lot of folks miss it because it works. It sounds like it's just got zipper noise, but really, that's more than zipper noise. There's actually a dropout there. And I can't have my organs making that sound. They should sound like this. Some stepping is normal because the matching transformer in these guys is not continuously variable. It is a series of steps, but there should be no silence in any of those steps. Like that. So this one here with the missing, with the damaged resistor, it's actually like a little piece of nichrome that goes between the two contacts. I'm going to see if it's there or not. It's completely missing. I'm going to replace it with this. This is an 1/8 watt 1 ohm resistor that will do the exact same job. If it's still there, I'll see if I can solder it back on. The factory wiring is, I think it's nichrome, as it's a predictable resistance per unit length. If it is, it will have been spot welded on, which means it might not be possible to solder. Like that wire doesn't solder very well. So if it's there and it's not taking solder as well, I will also replace it with this guy here, because the contact materials will take solder, and so will this resistor. Okay, so we got the lid off now. Reason number 888 why I love A100s. They have factory pop tops. This makes them really good giggers, actually, for this reason. It's very easy to service the drawbars. So what I do is, all I have to do is pull off the screws that go here, screws that go there, and then there's one screw that goes under the bar here, up, one that goes under the bar there, up, and you can get at all of this stuff as you need it to. And what I do is I actually, in an A100 that's meant for gigging, I remove the pilot light wiring entirely. I leave the pilot bulb in place if it had one, and then I just make sure there's enough slack over here to be able to do this. There always is. And then I can just take the top of the organ off like that. And just set it down right there. It's a little bit precarious, but it stays. And having the pilot light there, the bulb is actually the little metal edge of the connectors, but it's sitting on this side, and it keeps me from putting stress on the power wires over there. Not really important, but I think it's kind of nice. And I never plan to use those bulbs, so I'm not really worried about maybe bending them or whatnot. So, like I said earlier, should be a bad drawbar wire here, and sure enough there is. That blue one there is out. Remember your resistor color code. Brown, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, or violet, gray, and white. That's the same order that your drawbars go in from left to right, bass to treble. So this one here failed, and we can actually take a look at that and maybe get an idea of why it failed. You can see that it failed right where it was stripped. So these go back and forth a lot, and they're going to put stress on the wire, and depending on what the wire is made out of, they can break. I have been doing some experiments with heat shrink reinforcement in here, but the real key is to make sure that when you strip the wire, you don't nick it and create a weak spot. So often I'll just strip these with my thumb. If I had a hot wire stripper, I would use it, but do not use like your diagonal cutters to strip the wire, because you're almost guaranteed to create a weak spot. And then when you solder it on, this is actually a trick that I got from Steve Lee, and it seems to work quite well. Don't come up through the hole in the back of the drawbar. Lay it on top, inline like that, so that the wire's going in the same direction as the pull, and strip back a little bit extra wire here. It's not going to touch anything on you, but that moves the stress point back a little bit, and this part here, and don't put too much solder in the wire, because then it'll get stiff. So this is still flexible in there, and because it's inline and it's flexible and there's no stress point right where it's bending, that one will probably last, hopefully, for the duration of the life of this organ. So I'm going to do the same thing on this blue one right here. And then we're going to take a look at this loose contact here. You can see it's quite a bit looser than the one next to it. We're going to take a look underneath the one of the green wire there and see if we can fix the contacts. So this one's fixed now. You can see that the blue wire is soldered back on, and it maintains some of its flexibility back here. And I've also made very sure that it's kind of run in a way where it's not going to pull on that green wire. The green wire is quite short, so you want to make sure you try it like that, and 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 like that. And it's actually a little tighter than I would like it to be. Steve always liked his drawbar wires as short as possible. This isn't one of Steve's organs. I'm a little nervous about making them as short as possible, because then if anything goes wrong, you're kind of hosed. So these ones here are still in the loom there. These could be better organized, but I think they're probably better off run down like that, so that they're not hitting anything and they're not pulling tight on anything at all when they're being used. Like that one there, for example. These are pretty good, I think. Like I said, my CV actually has, and one of my A100s has a heat shrink from here to here, and I might start doing that again. I just want to run an experiment for a few years to see how well this holds up. I've been told it holds up really good, and so far I haven't had any failures on the ones I've done that way. Maybe I should just do this whole organ over again. It's obviously had a fair bit of maintenance throughout its life cycle. You can also guess that because there's some kind of grease on these parts of the drawbars, and those parts don't touch anything, so I'm guessing there's a fair bit of grease on the inside of this thing too, even though I've been wiping it off the top quite a bit. It's a bit of a mess. Okay, this one here I wanted to show you the reason it's cutting out. If you pull that one here, see how far down it goes, and you pull this one here, it goes down a little bit farther, and sharp-eyed people will have just noticed that that contact moved. Well, the reason why is actually really obvious. This whole thing's loose. And it's loose because that screw's loose. So we're just going to tighten that screw up, and that should fix that contact. So the next one I have to look at then is this one here that's got the bad contact. So I'm going to put the camera down for a second and shoot another segment. Okay, so that one here, I've just taken that screw out, and I can pull the contact out. And these are the two contacts that hit the bus bars on the inside of the drawbar assembly. You need one of them in contact with a bus bar at all times to avoid dropouts. And if I flip this over, sure enough, we can see that that little wire is, I hope you can see it, it's very close for this camera here. There's a little wire there. That's a 1 ohm piece of resistance wire. It's supposed to be bridging the gap between those two buttons and hitting that contact there, but you can see it's not touching that contact, so the spot weld has probably failed. Okay, so the contact is out, or contact pair, the back of the drawbar, you know what I mean. And I have removed the existing resistance wire. You just grab it with a pair of pliers and pull. And then spray this area with some contact cleaner just to make sure that it's clean. I don't mean Deoxit G5, I mean CRC QD, something to leave no residue whatsoever. If there's been oil contamination in there, it can mess up your solder joint, so you might as well have the workpiece clean when you start. Then what I like to do is I like to take my resistor and I bend it like that. And that's going to make it a little bit easier to solder on. Okay, so the contact is out. I've soldered the 1 ohm resistor to the tip of the drawbar contact assembly. I've removed that little piece of nichrome just by pulling it off with a pair of pliers. I didn't do the last solder joint because I wanted you to see how I sit that wire in there. If you look at the contacts really close, you can see that the one on the left there, there's some kind of insulator between it and the rest of the drawbar. And actually, if you put your screwdriver in, you can kind of rotate it about that that dot in the middle there, and just get a flat tip in there and get it kind of straight before you solder everything back together again. Then I sit the hook of the lead just right against the contact on that side so that I can put a drop of solder there. You don't want to put it underneath because then it'll short to the body of the drawbar, and then you'll have a 0 ohm resistor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of solder in there to get that going, and I'm going to trim that off. And then when I'm done, I'm going to check the resistance between those two buttons, and it has to be around an ohm. And make sure that you measure the resistance of your meter's leads by shorting them together first. So my meter, the leads have about a half an ohm of resistance, so that when I connect between those two buttons, my meter's going to read about 1.5 ohms. If it only read 0.5 ohms, that would mean that I had a short somewhere. So let me just finish this up now. Okay, the repair is complete. I used my meter to measure the resistance between those two buttons. I'd show you, but I need 3 hands and I only have 2. The wire, the resistor soldered up here, and on the back side, it's soldered right there. Really important to be very tidy in your work and only use the least amount of solder that's actually necessary to make this happen. I use eutectic solder too, so it's a little bit less worrisome with respect to cold solder joints. But this really is a case of you want to use as little solder as you need to in order to get in there, because there's not a whole lot of clearance on the inside. But now, oops, sorry. I can put this back together again. That one out of the way. And put a little bit more wire through the harness or the retainer there. And I can just push this back in now like that. And then I'm going to screw it to the drawbar in a second, and then we'll try it out. And we're back together. This drawbar here. Normal zipper noise. No more dropouts. This one here is working. And that one here is no longer dropping out either. So this organ should be ready to go.